If you ever smell burnt sugar in an empty place, don't breathe too deep, it means the papermen are near. I never believed scent could warn you of danger until it happened to me. The first time I smelled it, I was walking home past the old textile factory on a rainy night. The streets were empty, the factory long abandoned, but the air shifted suddenly. Thick and sweet. Burnt sugar. Like caramel left too long on a stove. I stopped, confused, because the scent didn't belong. That's when I heard the sound of paper folding, sharp creases snapping in the quiet, like someone crushing origami in their hands. From the shadows, they stepped out. Not people, not really. They looked like human silhouettes cut out from sheets of parchment, thin as a page but tall as men. Their movements rustled faintly, like old newspapers being shuffled. Where their faces should have been, there were only slashes of ink, smeared eyes and grins, shifting constantly as if someone was redrawing them in real time. They didn't walk, they bent, folded, and unfolded themselves, flattening against walls and then stretching back into form. One of them turned toward me. The burnt sugar grew stronger, clawing into my lungs, sweet and suffocating at once. My instinct screamed at me to run, but then I remembered what my grandmother once muttered when I was a kid: don't breathe too deep when the sugar smell comes. Papermen love what breath makes. So I held my breath. The paperman's head cocked, listening. Its ink grin twitched wider, and then, fold by fold, it sank back into the factory wall. The scent began to fade. My chest was burning, but I forced myself to wait until every trace of sweetness was gone before gasping for air. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I tried to remember everything my grandmother used to warn me about, the things I thought were just her strange bedtime stories. Now I know they were rules. Rules to survive the papermen. 1. If you smell burnt sugar in an empty place, stop breathing immediately. They follow the exhale. 2. Do not touch them. Skin on paper makes noise, and noise makes them multiply. 3. Never let them fold around you. If they wrap you in their pages, you'll become one of their faces. 4. Stay away from mirrors or glass when they're near. They slide across reflections like doors. 5. If you hear the tearing of paper, leave at once. That's how they feed, by ripping something alive into pieces flat enough to join them. Since that night, I've caught the scent twice more, in different places. Once at a bus stop at 1 a.m., once in the stairwell of my apartment building. Both times I obeyed the rules. Both times I survived. Now I keep sugar in my pocket everywhere I go. Not to eat, never to eat, but to burn, so I'll know if it's them before they know it's me. I've learned to strike matches quickly, and I always carry at least 3. The first time I tested it was unintentional. I dropped a match in my apartment late one night, the flame catching a grain of sugar that had spilled from my pocket onto the carpet. The scent rose fast, acrid and sharp, but this time it didn't come from nowhere. It came from me. And when it did, I heard a sound. Faint, but unmistakable. The rasp of paper being folded, somewhere behind my bathroom door. The door was shut. I hadn't opened it since morning. I swear I heard something breathing inside. Or maybe it was the pages fluttering. I didn't dare go near the door. I left my apartment that night, left the lights on, left everything exactly as it was. I stayed outside until dawn, huddled in the cold stairwell like a child too afraid of the dark. When I finally worked up the courage to go back, the bathroom door was open. The mirror above the sink was cracked straight through the middle, and the shards on the floor weren't scattered, they were folded, bent in sharp angles like someone had tried to make origami out of glass. The worst part? The smear on the mirror. It wasn't blood, not exactly. It looked more like thick ink, dripping down in lines that resembled words, though I couldn't make sense of them. They twisted, blurred, changed the longer I stared. One moment it looked like names, the next like numbers, the next like nothing at all. I cleaned the glass that day. But sometimes, in the right light, the smear is still there. A week later, it happened again. This time in the subway. It was late, the platform was nearly empty, and I thought I was safe. Then the air shifted, and I smelled it. Burnt sugar, so thick I could taste it on my tongue. I panicked, dropped the matchbox fumbling for a flame, and before I could strike it I heard them. Not one. Many. A whole swarm. Pages staring, unfolding, twisting against the tiled walls. I could see them in the corner of my eye, long shapes pressed flat against the advertisements, their faces painted across posters that had been blank the day before. I held my breath so hard my chest burned. I forced myself to stay still as the sound of creasing and folding came closer and closer. And then, something changed. One of them moved different from the rest. It didn't fold away. It didn't slide flat. It rose up in front of me, a silhouette so close I could see the ink dripping from its face. It tilted its head like it was listening. I tried not to breathe, but my body betrayed me. Just a gasp, tiny, sharp, desperate. Enough. Its grin widened, split across the paper like a fresh tear, and before I could stop myself, I looked straight at it. That's when I saw the truth. The faces drawn on them aren't random. They're stolen. Dozens of them, shifting over one another, some screaming, some blank, some crying with mouths that don't move. But one stood out. One face I recognized. My grandmother. Her lips stitched open with black ink lines, her eyes wide, hollow, and pleading. She saw me. She knew me. And then she was gone again, folded back into the others, swallowed by the shifting mess of ink and pulp. I ran. I don't even remember breathing, don't remember if they followed, only that I reached the street somehow, hands shaking, sugar still clenched tight in my fist. I burned every grain in the match flame right there on the curb, letting the smoke curl into the night, praying it would keep them away. Since then, I don't sleep much. Not because of nightmares, but because of the sound. At first I thought it was in my head, but it isn't. It's real. Paper. Crumpling, folding, tearing. Sometimes from the walls, sometimes from under my bed, sometimes from inside my closet. Always faint. Always patient. Like they're waiting for me to slip. I know I can't run forever. They already have her face. It's only a matter of time before they take mine. The truth of it hit me hardest last night, when I realized I'd stopped leaving my apartment entirely. The world outside isn't safer, but inside at least I can control the light, the locks, the matches. Or so I thought. Around midnight, I began to smell it again, not faint this time, not subtle. Thick waves of burnt sugar rolled through every room, coating my throat, making my eyes water. It wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was inside. I grabbed the matches and lit them one after another, scattering sugar across the floor, burning it until the air turned bitter and acrid. For a moment, I thought it worked. The scent shifted, cut through by smoke. But then I heard it. Not the usual folding from far away. This was closer. Louder. The sharp snap of a crease tearing itself into existence, directly behind my bedroom door. I froze, staring, waiting for it to open. But it didn't. Instead, the wood bulged outward, the paint stretching as if something impossibly flat was pressing against it, trying to slip through the grain. The knob began to turn. Slowly. Cautiously. I backed into the corner, clutching the last match like a weapon. The door didn't swing open, it peeled. The surface unraveled like someone tearing a page from a notebook, and from the splinters of wood stepped a figure thinner than shadow, its edges crisp, its ink-dripping face half-formed. My grandmother's eyes blinked at me once before melting into another stranger's grin, then another, and another. I could hear them whispering, faint as rustling pages, dozens of voices all overlapping. Some begged. Some laughed. One voice, hers, simply said my name. I struck the last match. The flame trembled in my hand, tiny, weak, pathetic against the thing standing only feet away. It didn't flinch. It leaned closer, the paper fibers of its body stretching, bending, reaching. My walls began to ripple, the posters, the wallpaper, all of it folding into long seams. Faces pushed through the plaster, some screaming without mouths, others pressed flat against the surface as if trapped behind the skin of my apartment itself. The room was collapsing into them. They weren't in my home. My home was becoming part of them. The match burned down to my fingers. I screamed, dropped it, and darkness swallowed me. For one horrible moment I thought it had gone out completely, but no, the flame had landed on the carpet. It caught the sugar I'd spilled earlier, flaring bright. Smoke filled the room, choking, bitter. The papermen recoiled, their forms crumpling, folding inward, their faces tearing like wet parchment. The walls shuddered and spat out fragments of plaster, the door sagged and split, the figures retreating into the cracks. I thought I had won. But then the smoke cleared, and I saw what they'd left behind. My reflection in the broken window wasn't mine anymore. The ink smear across the glass shaped itself into my own face, flat and drawn in dripping strokes, grinning wider than my mouth could ever stretch. It blinked when I didn't. It whispered when I was silent. I smashed the glass. The reflection didn't shatter. It stayed, clinging to the shards, watching me from every jagged piece like dozens of tiny, patient eyes. And in that moment I understood the truth: they don't need to fold me in one night. They only need time. A little more ink on the mirror. A little more of my breath stolen in the sugar-scented air. A little more of my face traced onto their endless, Shifting parchment. I don't run anymore. Running won't matter. They're not outside, waiting. They're already here, inside the walls, inside the glass, inside the spaces I can't burn clean. Every time I close my eyes, I feel my skin tighten, stiffen, crease. Some mornings I wake with paper cuts across my arms that weren't there before, red lines sharp and perfect like the edges of a fold. Last night, I heard them in my sleep. Not in the walls. Not in the floor. Inside me. Pages turning, crisp and endless, my bones bending like spines of books. I tried to scream, but only a dry rustle came out, like parchment being crumpled in a fist. When I opened my eyes, the room was gone. My bed, my ceiling, the light, it was all white. White as paper. And from the edges of that blankness, ink began to run, curling into letters I didn't understand. Words forming across me, through me. I don't know how much of me is left. I don't know how many more nights I'll wake human. But I know this, the papermen don't just take faces. They take everything. They rewrite you. They fold you down until you're nothing but a page, waiting to be filled with words you can't read. And when they finally finish with me, I'll be folded into them. Another face, another voice in the rustling. Another story written in ink that never fades,